hope having wishful dreams for Ethereum, I've got really bad news for you, man. Study Bitcoin and spare yourself, more pain.
Joe Biden was coming up with these kind of policies, and the Americans decided, right, we've got to get rid of this lunatic. And the Australians went, oh, that's a great idea.
Like, for me, that registers so high on the this is insane-o-meter. Like, it's just absolute lunacy.
US needs China more than China needs the US.
Right? If everybody does come and try and take their money out all at once, we're in big, big trouble because it doesn't exist.
Whenever I see the word crypto, like that, okay, cool, they're accepting Bitcoin, but I'm just allergic to the word crypto at this point. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Banter. I have Rick and Tony with me. Gents, a lot of news to get through today, so let's jump right in. Alrighty, up first, for the 8th time, Bitcoin has hit 100K and ETH has hit an all-time low each time Bitcoin hits 100K. So I think it's pumped a little bit or whatever. But the first time Bitcoin hit 100K, ETH was 4K, and now it's down to, I think it's a little over 2K, but when this hit, it was at about 2K. So ETH is dying, and there are a good handful of people who are in denial. Tony, this probably doesn't surprise you, though. I thought this would take longer. I thought we were going to have like a 20-year, time horizon where we just, painfully watched it die off. What do you think is going on here?
This is, to me, it's karma having a field day. I mean, usually shitcoins die, instantly. They come crashing down or somebody gets rug pulled. This is like some sort of vicious torture. It's like drip, 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 drip down to zero. Like give people a little bit of hope and then hit them again. Give them a little bit of hope and then hit them again. But the trend continues down to zero. We've always said this. I mean, if it's not Bitcoin and it's denominated by fiat or controlled by a bunch of people, it's going to get centralized, it's going to get corrupted, and sooner or later it's going to, head to zero. And we are seeing this with Ethereum. The reason I think it took the longest is because so many people thought it was like a holy grail of crypto, and now, well, that storyline is falling apart, and here we are. Drip, 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 back to zero. So if you're still, hope having wishful dreams for Ethereum, I've got really bad news for you, man. Study Bitcoin and spare yourself, more pain.
Doesn't feel like the flippening is very likely at this point. Rick, what are your thoughts?
It's crazy, man. And like Tony says, it was always inevitable. Even from its inception, ETH had major problems, right? They raised a load of money to start it off. It was heavily pre-mined. And like Tony says, the most brutal thing about ETH is like some of these other altcoins, they just die straight away, right? So rip the Band-Aid off, you lost all your money, and hopefully you then go back to Bitcoin. But ETH's like this slow torture machine where you keep thinking like, oh, maybe it's going to come back. And then inevitably it doesn't. So you'll even see this on the timeline now, because I think like ETH might have pumped like 15% or something yesterday, right? Like everything's pumping a little bit. So you'll see this happen again because people get excited. Oh yeah, it's coming back. ETH's coming back. It's going to outperform Bitcoin because they cherry pick, like a week where that happens. But they're going to continue to get punished. What's really funny about it is I think even Vitalik knows the game is up, right? Like that thing has rebranded so many times. Do you remember? I remember when it started, it was pitched to be the world computer and everything would run on Ethereum somehow. I mean, no real explanation as to how or what, and it never came to fruition. But that was the pitch. And then they went through that thing. I didn't even understand this one, but do you remember like the merge and the splurge and the purge and like, I don't know what that hot mess was that they tried to pitch, but it's this coin that's like desperately trying to find a use case, desperately trying to prove that it's useful, and so far it hasn't managed it. All it ever achieved was launching JPEGs and crap that nobody really wanted. Like, who really believed? You've got to be crazy to think like a monkey picture that you paid like $500,000 for. You really believe in 5 or 10 years that that's going to be worth anything? It's bonkers, right? And I think ETH's biggest problem is it has competition now. It could never compete with Bitcoin But lo and behold, a load of other shitcoin chains came along that started competing with it. So now people are putting their rubbish on Sol and Base and God knows what other platforms. So it used to dominate the market of shitcoinery and now it has to share it. So it doesn't really have a reason to exist. And the cherry on top, which I know a lot of Bitcoiners enjoyed this week, I don't know if you boys saw this, but Vitalik came out with a tweet and he said something like, we need to make Ethereum more like Bitcoin. And man, I just burst out laughing like, bro, you should just, we have Bitcoin, just close your chain down and get on the right side. It's crazy,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah, too many sunk costs for him to be able to do that, and I think he's taken a moral high ground, or he's felt like he's taken a moral high ground rather on so many topics. It's the the amount of pride he would have to swallow in order to make the change is just, I think, beyond most human comprehension. So I don't anticipate that as being likely. Alrighty, besides ETH, the rest of the world is burning down as well. We've got Australia this week. Let's watch this video. I'll let them explain the unrealized gains tax.
I wish I could believe Richo on this one, but they're going full steam ahead with this thing. They've put it into the, it'll start on July 1. So what's going on?
It's already in legislation before the Parliament. I have been talking about this for a long time, and the people who are going to be hit the hardest are the millennials, because by the time it gets to their time to take their super, they'll be way over 3 million. It is not indexed. So
explain how it works.
It works this way. If the assets in your super fund go up, then the Australian Tax Office, the way the legislation goes, will determine what the capital gain is, and then you'll be hit with a tax of 30 cents on the dollar on that increase.
Even though you don't have that profit.
Even though you haven't got the money, and it's every year.
And it just keeps going up as they,
Yes.
so the bureaucrats, the tax office
Correct.
sit there, decide how much money you've made and tax you on, even though you never see a red cent of that money.
And if the value goes down, then you get some sort of paper credit, which you could probably die before you'll see made out to you. So it is the most insidious tax. It came from Joe Biden, of all people.
Oh, great.
And it was adopted by our, well, I call him the snake charmer. And the snake charmer says, oh, this is a great way to get millions out, or trillions out of that. In the end, by the time they go on with it for
it's
years,
classic socialism, communism. They believe they own all our money and they just want to help them. It's theft, it's stealing.
Alrighty, so I would get the hell out of Australia for any of our friends down under. This is crazy. I mean, the fact that they think that that this doesn't drastically change incentives and that people aren't going to try to exit or escape. I mean, I feel like that's happened. Where was it? Somewhere in Scandinavia, I think, maybe Norway. So crazy times. Rick, what's your take? Is this, you guys don't have anything like this yet, do you?
No. I mean, this is beyond bonkers. I think for a long time, Bitcoiners have been, talking about how the world is sliding towards full-blown communism. And I think a lot of people, when they heard us talk about that, thought, God, these guys are absolute Looney Tunes, right? Like, don't be so, don't exaggerate it so much. Don't be so bombastic. But I mean, how do you call this anything other than communism? You earn money in a currency that they can print out of nowhere and devalue, right? So you can't save in that money. Otherwise, you are guaranteed to get poorer over time and steal your wealth. So what options does that leave you with? You have to invest it. You have to speculate and gamble if you want any hope of even just standing still, let alone growing your wealth. But they want to close that avenue to you as well. They want to say, well, even if you are smart enough and shrewd enough to take the money you earn, invest it in, assets that appreciate in value, well, we're still going to take the money, even if you don't sell your position. So, you buy a stock, it doubles in price. All of a sudden, you owe 30% of that stock, despite not taking any profit, right? So the next question is, well, where the hell does that 30% come from? You don't have that cash. It's still in the trade, right? You're still invested in that asset. So it does a couple of things. First, it's likely to force you to sell that asset, right? When maybe you don't want to. Look, you can spin this 1,000 ways, but ultimately it's just theft now. Like they've gone full on theft. They can't let you save in cash. You can't invest because they'll steal your money that way. The only way to protect yourself is to get yourself into Bitcoin in a way that they have no access to that money. They can't just come and take it from you. And ideally, if you can, if you're living in a jurisdiction that has gone full on communist, you might want to be thinking, well, look, even if I manage to protect my own wealth in this communist state, do I even want to be in a communist state at all? Because we've seen what happens under communism. You know, the food runs out, the energy runs out, and people go absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I mean, smart lady, right? She really explained the problem very, very well. And what's surprising to me is, yeah, Joe Biden was coming up with these kind of policies, and the Americans decided, right, we got to get rid of this lunatic. And the Australians went, oh, that's a great idea. Let's go full Biden, which is and the Canadians voted in Mark Carney. Listen, I don't understand anybody anymore. Like, who's voting for this stuff? But there you go, absolute craziness.
The funny thing is, I feel like around tax season in Australia now, there's going to be huge sell pressure as people are having like they're gonna have like a mini recession every time tax day rolls around because everyone's selling to like cover their unrealized gains. Yeah, I mean, it's like they say, capitalism makes everyone unequally wealthy, and communism makes everyone equally poor. Tony, what do you think?
If you're an Australian with half a brain, get out while you still can, because what's coming your way is going to be painfully ugly. And what makes it even more insane is how there's no reaction from the crowd. You know, they are literally telling you that they're about to rape you financially. And are there any riots on the street? Is anybody, objecting or making some noise? I don't hear it, man. That worries me more than the blatant theft. I mean, the theft I expect from these crooks. I mean, that's what they do. But the lack of pushback is, insanely more worrisome to me. So if you're an Australian, that is still thinking rationally, get out. Because I've seen this movie and it's about to get horrifically bad. Plan B residencies, we can help you with that. Or there's plenty of other options. But I wouldn't stay in Australia if I were a citizen there right now. This is a very, very bad sign. And yeah, get out.
Yeah, and by the way, if you are in Australia, there are a lot of places around the world with far fewer poisonous animals. So lots of benefits to getting out of Australia at this particular moment in time. Alrighty, we've got more capital controls in Spain. They're introducing a 150,000 euro penalty for failing to report cash withdrawals of over 3,000 euros with a 24-hour notice. So basically, your cash is not your own, which we've already known because we understand the notion of fractional reserve banking, but many people are still uncovering the scam. Uh, this is crazy. They're going to ask you why you're taking the money out, what you're going to spend it on. They can interrogate you. You just have to realize that it isn't your money. Tony, what would you say to the friendly folks in Spain?
This is a prediction that I've been calling for the past 2 years. This is Lebanon all over again in just slightly different version. What's happened now is that if all the citizens in Spain have effectively lost all their funds. They're no longer yours, no matter what it says on the screen. Because to use it, you have to ask permission. Now, you can't take it out and then declare it or ask permission. You need to ask permission first. That's step one of your complete collapse. Then it gets worse because once it starts down this path, it's the path of desperation. Back in Lebanon, we had something similar where they started restricting credit card limits. But that restriction decreased on almost on a daily basis, and then boom, no more credit cards, and then boom, no more money, and then boom, that's it, access to nothing. So if you think this is going to play out for like months and months and months, I've got really bad news for you. This is an extremely worrisome sign for the EU. It's a sign of a collapse that's starting in Spain. It's the worst fucking place to be if you are right now. Again, get out while you still can, because this is how it starts and how it ends. Like I said, Steven Spielberg can't possibly imagine how bad things escalate. So, and this is coming to all of the EU. I mean, Spain is not like the exception to the rule here. They're all bankrupt. They're all desperate. They're all losing because now there's a new competitor that they can't control, and that's Bitcoin in self-custody. So, if you wanted the best marketing for Bitcoin, which doesn't include any one of us, just go to your local bank and ask them for your money. and let us know how that story plays out.
Well said. Weren't we talking a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two, about the ECB is like going to try tapping $10 trillion in private, like, useless
Yeah.
private savings or whatever? Rick, do you think this is maybe like their transition into that? Like, hey, this is how we start to lock people out of their funds and make them go through jump through a bunch of hoops, and then we can begin to confiscate?
Look, the end goal for these people is always the same, which is I want to steal your wealth and your money. And they'll use any method that they can come up with to do that. So, if one of the justifications is, oh, we need to go to war and we need your pension to fund it, fine. Yeah, they'll go and try that. And then look, like Tony says, when they get in real trouble, they realize, like, man, we're at real risk of a bank run here. Right? If everybody does come and try and take their money out all at once, we're in big, big trouble because it doesn't exist, right? It's not there. It never has been. And I actually think it might be more closely related to, I think maybe a couple of banters ago, we were talking about the power cuts all across Spain. Now, one of the second order effects of those power cuts was there were loads of shops where you couldn't use your debit card, right? Like, all the banking services were down, all this sort of stuff. So, look, a lot of people, quite sensibly, after that point, I know some people who live in Spain, they all went to the bank and thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a big chunk of cash, or, a reasonable amount of cash, maybe 4 weeks living expenses. And I'm going to go and stick that in my house somewhere in my safe so that if we get let down by this, the energy grid again and everything goes dark, at least I can still go out, buy some bread, milk, whatever they need from the supermarket. So it's kind of weird that these two things are happening in close succession, right? Because I wonder how many people went out to try and bolster their cash in their hand after that moment because it kind of freaked them out a little bit. And Spain's knee-jerk reaction is like, whoa, 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 hang on. If this carries on too much and people start, hoarding cash, it's only going to accelerate them to the end point. But like Tony says, this is not isolated to Spain. The same thing happens in the UK. There's videos of people going in to try and take out, £3,000, I think he wanted. And the bank manager was asking him, what's it for? And he said, well, I'm going to go and buy a motorbike for my 17-year-old son. I'm buying it in cash. And they said, well, show us an invoice for the bike. And the guy was like, well, I can't. I'm buying it on like some guy I know, right? It's like cash. We're just doing a thing. And they refused to give him his money. So you'll start seeing it in the UK, even in Germany, France, like the EU is sliding quickly into the same sort of space that Australia is. The world is going to have to go through some serious turmoil before all of this gets sorted out. There's no place that isn't connected to the current financial system. There's nowhere to hide from the fiat collapse. It's not going to be localized to any one place. When this thing goes pop, it's going pop. So, wherever you are, yes, you could maybe go to like South America, maybe looks like it'll be more stable and stuff like that. But ultimately, like, you've got to protect your wealth because, like, even if you get to South America, if you've got no wealth, so you got to do this in a sensible order. Protect your money in Bitcoin self-custody, and then start looking at your options now that your money can cross borders easily, and start thinking, well, maybe I'll get treated a bit better here, or maybe the risks aren't so high in other jurisdictions. But Bitcoin has got to be what you're looking at right now because you're running out of time. Everybody's running out of time.
Yeah, Rick, the sad thing is that that story you gave of the guy trying to buy a motorcycle for his son is like, for me, that registers so high on the this is insane -ometer. Like, it's just absolute lunacy. And I think for most people today, they'd be like, "Oh, it's like, oh, that's crazy. Catch the game last night." Like, I really think that's they're like, "Oh yeah, that sucks." It's like, no, you don't understand how insanely ridiculous that is. Like, that could be he's like, wait till it's you, and then you're gonna realize how insanely ridiculous it is. But it's yeah, people falling prey to this. Well, it wasn't me, so I didn't say anything. And it wasn't me again, so I didn't say anything. And then next thing you know, it is them, and it's too late. Alrighty, up next, we've got a man who's never in the news, Mr. Trump. I'll let him speak for himself. We'll just watch this video.
Federal Reserve Chairman, Mr. President, says that you would have to call him for a meeting. Do you plan to meet with him?
I could
and what do
call
you
him
think
for a
about
meeting, but it's like talking to a wall. He should be.
the Bank of England cut today?
Well, the Bank of England cut, China cut, everybody's cutting but him. It's I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a shame. I call him Too Late. Too Late Powell. That's his nickname, and it's a shame. It's ridiculous. So meeting, he's always too late. But in this case, it's not going to matter that much because our country is so strong. We're so powerful in terms of economic strength.
Alrighty, so Trump says that it's like talking to a wall, talking to Powell. I can see that. I mean, to be fair, Powell doesn't seem like the most dynamic personality. Yeah, a lot of rate cuts around the world, and the U.S. seems to be holding off. I'm not. I don't know enough to have like a strong opinion as to whether or not he should or shouldn't be. But so far, he's always been late, and so I'm thinking he probably should be. But just based on the fact that he isn't, that's what happens when you have communism at the monetary level. Tony, what's your take? Any opinions?
Yeah, man. I mean, this is like two kids bickering in a playground. Give me the steak. No, I won't give you the steak. Give me the ball. No, I won't give you the ball. It's like it's a show. I don't know what to make of it. Honestly, but whatever it is, it's not good for the American people. One thing about Trump, I mean, I like the guy. I mean, he's always delivered on a lot of things, and he's certainly somebody to listen to. He's very charismatic and entertaining. That's for sure. But I think he's still hung up on the delusion of America still being the biggest and the best no matter what happens. And I think that plot was lost back in 1991, my friend, because as much as we'd like it to be, that's not how the rest of the world sees it. And, there's, clearly a lot of movements and messages from, foreign players that no, we don't want anything to do with you. We don't want to listen to you. We'll find our way. We don't need you. And this is what's happening. Things are changing. And as long as you are stuck in the past, and ego has a big, part to play with that. I don't know how that plays out, man. Honestly, I grew up with American culture, so it's always been near and dear to me, and it still is. But I'm also not delusional into thinking that the rest of the planet, adheres to that same sentiment. You want to lead the world, you got to lead it by influence. You can't lead it by being a bully, right? And so I hope that changes. I hope that's how America leads, because if that's the case, you win everybody. But if that's not the case and you still stick to your old habits, that can turn ugly really quick.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we've been the bully long enough that that's sort of our MO at this point. There's probably no escaping that. Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Tony because just look at history, right? The dominant power shifts and moves all the time. I mean, there once was a time where, believe it or not, the UK had the greatest empire across the world, right? But that doesn't last forever, and neither does the status of the world reserve currency. So at one point, the Dutch had the world reserve currency, the British had the world reserve currency, and if you read into like the fourth turning, these things are cyclical. Um, so look, people are already starting to drift away from the US. I think the US is going to do actually exactly what the UK did, almost to the letter. They are going to, like Tony says, sort of look back to the past of when they were the most dominant superpower and try and dine out on that for a long time. The UK still does it now, right? It's crazy. Our politicians actually think that they have some influence on like global geopolitical events, but no one cares. It's like it's either Russia, China, or the US. No one cares what the UK is doing. So, I mean, the US is always going to be a dominant power just because of the size of it and the resources it has. But I think this idea that it is the dominant power over the rest of the world for the foreseeable is a little bit naive. I mean, look at China. Look at how far China has come in the last 50, 60 years. You simply can't ignore that explosion. So, I mean, let's get back to Trump and his argument with Powell. Like Tony says, it's just a pantomime, right? Because who cares? I mean, the funny thing to me is they say, well, oh, is Powell too late or too early? And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Is he printing too many dollars too early, or is he printing too many dollars too late? I would argue you've been printing too many dollars for far too long, right? Like, who cares? Who cares whether he starts devaluing your currency today or in a month. I tell you who cares. People who think it's going to pump their bags or pump their stock, that's all they care about. The fact that it's going to completely destroy the US dollar, which, by the way, is what gives America most of its dominance, seems lost on most people. So, look, there's no point agreeing with Trump and there's no point agreeing with Powell. The headline is they're going to print more money either today if Trump gets his way, or maybe in a few months if Powell gets his, but it's coming. And when they print it, it's going to go down in value. So you might want to go and look at a different currency. My personal favorite would be Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, the good thing is if the ship's going down, at least we're gonna have fireworks on the way. It's fun watching Trump say some crazy things, and Powell certainly probably deserves his fair shot. So yeah, no, I think the other problem I have with all of this is the way everything's framed. It's like there needs to be a dominant global power, and who's the next one, and like the whole thing is a competition. And I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate threats in the world, especially in different regions. I don't think there's any legitimate military threat to the United States today. We have a $1 trillion military budget, remember? And that doesn't mean that we're efficient, we're lean, we're ready for a drone war with China. I don't know, but we're, 15% of China's consumer economy. Like that is, they do not want to get into a hot war, a kinetic war with the United States, period. And you know what? No one does because we trade with everyone, right? And so the fact that it's like, well, there needs to be someone who's like the winner and the world police and all this, it's just ludicrous. It makes no sense. Like, let's just trade openly with everyone. Let's unwind from 790 of our 800 military bases around the world. And I think things will be much better off, and certainly our budget will look a little bit more balanced if we were to do something like that. So anyway, that's my takeaway. I don't know if he should be printing more or not. I mean, I prefer that he doesn't in general, but I think it's his only option. Alrighty, up next, we've got a $14 billion Emirati state-owned oil company. Emirate now accepts Bitcoin and crypto for gas payments. The petrodollar is dying massive, says Pete Rizzo. Whenever I see the word crypto, like that, okay, cool, they're accepting Bitcoin, but I'm just allergic to the word crypto at this point, and so I'm curious. I need to dig in deeper on this story and figure out what all they're accepting because it's just hilarious to me that they would like accept Litecoin or ETH or something like that, and then feel like they're doing something productive.
It doesn't matter what they're accepting. It's the fact that they don't want the dollar. That's
No,
the
I get that.
headline,
I
right?
get that.
I
I
mean,
get that.
this is what I mean. The world is changing. You can't be stuck thinking you're in 1991. Now, whatever you say is going to be the rule of law, and if you don't obey, we're gonna come and beat you up. Now people have options and real fucking viable options that they're just clinging to. If they don't like your rules, they don't like what you're saying, well, they're going to ignore you. And that's exactly what's starting to happen here. When the Habibis come into this space, these guys are not coming in with a $1.99 budget. These guys are coming in with trillions of dollars worth of budget. And if they're starting to accept Bitcoin payments and, okay, crypto, whatever it is, eventually they'll probably, zoom into just Bitcoin. But let them start somewhere. The fact that they're not isolating themselves to the dollar, to me, that is the game changer. That's the message to the world that, all right, enough of this. This is a new world now. These are the rules that we're following. And if they do this, watch who follows. And so this is what I mean. You have to lead by influence. You can't come in anymore and like start bombing everybody. What, you're gonna start wars with every country in the world now? You
Probably.
can't. What we're starting to see is big nations returning to their civilizations, right? I mean, China, the US needs China more than China needs the US. 90% of what you buy in the States comes from China. Even like lately, like even the big brands, that were so-called, made locally, all of these guys have empty stores that are completely shut down because they've been exposed to them too. They have their strings attached to China. So how are you going to like defeat China when it's like your lifeline, basically? They're like the IV into your economy. You're not going to do it. And the same thing with Russia. I mean, they're huge. Return back to the Byzantine type of civilization. That's what we're starting to see here. So the old ways, those, you must get them out of your head one way or another. Because again, we have options. And the biggest option today is Bitcoin, the neutral, reserve currency that everybody is going to settle on, because none of these guys will ever trust each other. So there are no other options. You can try to delay it and think you're smarter by doing this and that. Ultimately, you're coming right back to Bitcoin because it's the only one that no one else has an advantage over you with. So how long that takes, I can't tell you, man. But if you're holding your Bitcoin in self-custody, like I said many times, you've already won. Hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, find a place that respects you as a human being, and you should be just fine.
Tony with the signal and Michael with the noise as I, like a dog chasing a squirrel, go straight for the crypto. Rick, what's your take?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. It's kind of funny that this story came off of the back of what we were just talking about. Because look, it's the perfect signal, isn't it? That the dominance of the US dollar is falling, and people are starting to figure out, hang on, we can go around this currency and start trading directly with each other and not ask anybody's permission and not have the US in the middle of it. So, that's the signal. If Donald Trump should be looking at anything, he should be paying attention to that and understand that, look, if everybody starts trading energy with Bitcoin, then it doesn't matter how many notes Jerome Powell prints, you can't buy oil with it because they only accept Bitcoin. What are you going to do? What are you going to do at that point? And, Michael, you mentioned, well, 15% of China's exports are the US, so they couldn't live without us. I'm thinking 15% sounds pretty small, actually. That means 85% of their trade is not reliant on the US. And you're talking about China's a culture and a society that's lasted for literally thousands of years. I think they'll be able to progress past it. So I think the only way that America really stays on top here is if it gets really serious about Bitcoin, and quite quickly, because the US dollar gives them such special privilege in the world right now. And once that disappears, you're going to be back to competing with countries like China, who pay people far less than Americans want to work for, right? You're going to have serious competition. You won't be able to bully people with your currency anymore. So yeah, I think the multipolar world is coming, and you know what? That's amazing for Bitcoiners, right? I don't really have a horse in this race. Like, I'm not anti-America or pro-China. I don't really, I have no allegiance to any one state, and not even the UK. I have no allegiance to the UK state at the moment. I can tell you that. But what I love about this for Bitcoiners is, if you have this multipolar world, they're going to have to try and attract the most productive people in society to their nations. And that's going to be Bitcoin holders, right? So I think actually the world will become more livable for Bitcoiners the longer this carries on. I think there might be a little bit of friction on the way between these big superpowers as they kind of reassess where the chips fall. But yeah, it's an obvious thing to do is get the hell away from the dollar because everybody else is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And my point with China's export economy being, I think it's like 10 to 15% to the United States, is that they wouldn't want to start a war with us. First of all, because they
Oh
don't
no.
give any indication that they want to start wars. They don't have 800 military bases around the world. But what you're right about there is that it does mean that we don't have the economic leverage that we think we do because they're trading with everyone. Alrighty, last up, my home state, Missouri, set to become the first state to exempt capital gains taxes on stocks, crypto, and real estate. Unfortunately, I have to pay federal taxes on all of this. And so I don't escape the IRS entirely, but that's good news. Hopefully, this is the sort of development that can help push forth the medium of exchange use case, because that's what a lot of people struggle with. There is, I have to, I mean, you don't have to, but you're supposed to pay capital gains if you realize a gain when you use Bitcoin to buy something. To me, though, I'll just say, as an American and as a Missourian, bullish that perhaps this is like the, I guess maybe the catalyst for other, like someone has to be the first mover on these sorts of things. And I think there are going to be states like California who are like the last mover on this sort of thing, but like other more conservative states will probably look at this and say, "Oh, okay, they did it. We have permission to do it now, right?" So anyway, I know that the state by state stuff probably is less interesting to the two of you, but I'd be curious to hear if you care your thoughts.
I guess the Cowboys live strong in Missouri, right? The
That's
ones to
right.
make the first movers in the space. Very good, man. Congratulations. Well, look, it's definitely bullish news. Nothing bad to say. But it's baby steps, right? But I mean, you have to, like you said, you have to start somewhere, and hopefully, that will trickle to other states nearby. And before you know it, since Bitcoin has always been a bottoms up movement, well, we have to start somewhere, and hopefully it works its way up to onto the federal level, and then there's no more income tax or capital gains tax or any tax of any sort on anyone, and then watch how America flourishes then. Just find more efficient ways of generating revenue and actually being efficient with your money. Standardizing on a Bitcoin standard, well, you have no choice but to be efficient, because if you screw it up, it's game over. There's no magic red button to press. So no, I'm happy for you, man. Congratulations, and to all Missourians, it's a good day.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I could see New Hampshire maybe being the next because they actually did just adopt I think it's New Hampshire who adopted a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So I think that's sort of a libertarian minded state generally, kind of a leave us alone state. But yeah, I think this is, again, something that other states will begin to adopt slowly. Hopefully, it puts pressure at the federal level to do something. The problem is when you don't have the tax base of capital gains, you have to print more if you're going to continue to run a $2 trillion deficit, which is what we do. Rick, any final comments on this?
I don't have a lot to add because I don't fully understand the American tax system. So it seems like it's a good thing because you now don't pay state taxes if you spend your Bitcoin, but you do have to pay still capital gains taxes at a federal level. So actually, I've got more questions than answers. Like my first question to you would be, right, so under the current, before this change, right, if you spent some Bitcoin, say you bought a hardware wallet with your Bitcoin, would you have to like report that gain and pay a capital gain tax to your state and then fill in another bit of paperwork, send that? So you kind of get taxed twice for the same capital gain. Is that what it was before?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll tread carefully here. I don't know exactly because I
Okay.
haven't experienced that that
Well,
scenario. Not that I haven't spent my Bitcoin, but yeah. So I think what you do is you pay if you realize a gain in purchasing something with your Bitcoin. In other words, they view that as like selling it, I guess.
mhm.
You would have to hypothetically report that to the state and at the federal level, and you pay varying capital gains taxes on each, depending
Okay.
on how long you've held it. I don't know if the amount matters. I can't remember. So yeah, it's a wonky, weird,
Well,
horrible
Michael, the
tax.
only thing I've got to say to that is listen, you kicked us out, right? For like a 3% tax on your
Oh
tea,
yeah.
right? And now you got like 3 layers of tax. You're getting absolutely hammered. Like, come on, Americans. Like, go back to the way you used to do because you guys would tar and feather people for trying to tax you too much. So, look, maybe Missouri is setting the standard and bringing that American spirit back because, listen, guys, you own like all the private guns and stuff. Why haven't you just marched straight up to the Capitol? Right. Well, I suppose you did, and that caused a big scene. So, listen, I'm going to stop talking about that before I get us canceled.
Well, the problem was they forgot their firearms when they did that. They all just marching around. Like it wasn't a revolution. The whole insurrection narrative was such nonsense. There
Guns are not meant to be decorative, right?
Oh, but some they can be, but there's a fine line between a decorative firearm and a useful firearm. You just got to keep them both close by. Yeah, no, it's a crazy tax system. To address your comment, Rick, makes no sense. Trump's floated the idea of removing capital gains and income tax at the federal level, which would be the best possible thing that could possibly happen for our country in the short term. The problem is again that $2 trillion deficit doesn't fix itself, and I don't know how they replace that besides either massive cuts, which they're not going to touch defense, they're not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all the stuff that should be cut, and so they're going to have to print if that's the option. But Anyway, for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, do me a favor if you're enjoying Bitcoin Banter, the podcast, give us a like, subscribe, share it with someone, comment on the video. We'd really appreciate that. And of course, go to thebitcoinway.com/podcast, schedule a free 30-minute consultation with a member of our team. We can help you with 100% self-custody of your Bitcoin. We'll train you with the skills that you need to do it right the first time. We help with online privacy, setting up privacy phones. We have a Plan B residency option. So if you're in Spain or Australia today, you're on the chopping block, get a Plan B residency. Again, thebitcoinway.com/podcast. Gents, as always, thanks for joining. I look forward to catching up here in a few days.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Cheers, guys.